December 25, 1944. The Ardennes forest lay blanketed in darkness, wrapped in fog so thick it swallowed sound. A German battalion moved cautiously through the night, 702 men strong, veterans hardened on the Eastern Front. They crossed a river with the confidence of soldiers who had survived every nightmare Europe could throw at them. By morning, not one of them would be alive. Not a single shell had hit them directly, yet their bodies lay scattered, lifeless, as if an invisible hand had reached through the fog. What struck terror into their hearts that night was not a cannon, not a grenade, not even a sniper's bullet. The Allies had deployed something entirely new, something no army had ever seen before, and it had been deadly beyond imagination. When German engineers recovered over 20,000 of these weapons, they could not understand how they worked. They examined every single unit, convinced it must be some form of sabotage or miracle. What they found was simpler and more terrifying: a mechanical timer holding within it the heart of a miniature radar system. A technology the soldiers never even knew existed, yet it had decided their fate. This was not a story of heroic artillery barrages or famous tank battles. This was a story of stealth, science, and precision. The weapon did not announce itself with smoke or fire. It did not need to. It was invisible, silent, and lethal. That Christmas night, the forest itself seemed to have turned against them. No one could see it, no one could hear it, and yet the Germans were being hunted in a way they would never understand. The secret of the weapon was so tightly held that it was classified above nearly everything else in the U.S. military, only rivaled by the atomic bomb. Its impact would ripple through the war in ways that few historians would dare to trace, affecting both strategy and morale. In the quiet of the Ardennes that night, the world witnessed a glimpse of what the future of warfare could become. A war where death no longer needed to announce itself with sound or smoke, where a battalion could vanish as if swallowed by the forest itself. No one saw the device in action, yet every movement the Germans made was anticipated. Orders were ignored, formations fell apart, and morale cracked under an unseen pressure. Even the most experienced officers were powerless to stop it. Historians later noted that this was not just a weapon, it was a psychological force. It turned fear into an invisible enemy, teaching soldiers that sometimes the deadliest threats were those they could not see. The story of this weapon begins not in a battlefield, but in the minds of scientists who dared to create the impossible. In the next hours, you will see how a converted garage, ordinary tools, and thousands of unsuspecting hands combined to build something that the world had once declared physically impossible. But first, you must understand the night in the Ardennes, when 702 men crossed a river and never made it to the other side. It was a night that would become legend, a chilling prelude to a weapon that would redefine how wars were fought and won.
The weapon the Germans could not understand was more than just a mechanical timer. Inside that small, unassuming device lay a miniature radar system capable of detecting movement and triggering deadly precision without a single human touch. Scientists at the time called it impossible, a fantasy that defied the laws of physics. The leading engineers of Germany, the very nation obsessed with technological superiority, examined every unit they captured and walked away baffled. How could a device no larger than a clock anticipate human movement and strike with absolute accuracy? They could not imagine it, and yet it had already rewritten the rules of war. In the United States, the weapon was born in a converted used car garage, a place that by all appearances was ordinary and unremarkable. Inside, brilliant minds worked day and night, transforming theory into reality. Every gear, every circuit, every piece of metal was painstakingly crafted to make the impossible possible. It was here, away from the eyes of generals and politicians, that the future of warfare took shape in silence. Ordinary tools and materials were combined in ways that had never been attempted before. The work was secret, compartmentalized, and utterly obsessive. Thousands of tests were conducted, many ending in failure, but each failure taught the scientists something new. They discovered the delicate balance of timing, radar sensitivity, and mechanical reliability. Every minor adjustment could mean the difference between a dud and a lethal weapon. The engineers who labored in that garage knew they were creating something unprecedented, something that would one day terrify even the most battle-hardened soldiers, and yet the broader world had no idea it existed. By the time the weapon reached the battlefield, it had already passed every imaginable test. It was faster, quieter, and more efficient than anyone could have predicted. The elegance of its design was matched only by its lethality. What made it even more remarkable was that it could be produced on a scale never seen before. The secret assembly lines, operated largely by unsuspecting workers, could turn out tens of thousands of units every day. Each one carried within it the genius of minds who refused to accept limits, who ignored doubt, and who believed that science could bend reality itself. The world would not see this weapon for what it truly was until it had already claimed lives, disrupted armies, and shattered conventional tactics. It was a silent revolution, a weapon that needed no dramatic displays of force. Its power lay in invisibility, in anticipation, and in the precise application of science. Even those who studied it afterward would struggle to explain how it worked. To this day, the ingenuity of that converted garage and the minds who labored within it remains a testament to human invention and the terrifying potential of hidden technology. This was more than a tool of war. It was a prophecy of modern combat. The work done in secrecy, away from the headlines and the battlefield, created a legacy that would ripple through history. Every device sent to the front lines carried with it not just destruction, but the culmination of human curiosity, obsession, and brilliance. And yet, at the moment it was first deployed, no one outside that garage knew just how unstoppable it had become.
Thousands of women worked silently in factories across the United States, their hands moving with precision, unaware of the true purpose behind every component they assembled. They believed they were soldering light bulbs, assembling ordinary mechanical devices, yet each part they carefully crafted would one day become a silent killer on the battlefield. The scale of production was staggering. From a single unit that cost over $700, the operation evolved into mass production, capable of producing 70,000 devices every single day. These women were the hidden backbone of America's most secret weapon, and they would never know the full story. In dimly lit rooms, with the hum of machines all around them, the workers followed meticulous instructions. Each component had to be perfect. One misstep could render a device useless, or worse, fail catastrophically in the field. Yet no one could question their work or even ask why such secrecy surrounded a simple assembly line. Supervisors reminded them constantly that they were part of the war effort, but even they only knew fragments of the larger picture. The genius of the weapon's design depended on compartmentalization. Knowledge was restricted to protect the secret and to ensure that even if a factory was discovered or attacked, the enemy could never piece together the full mechanism. Despite the monotony, the women's work carried an invisible urgency. Every completed unit moved closer to deployment, closer to changing the course of battles without a single shot being fired directly at an enemy. They had no way of knowing that their hands were shaping history. The war machines they were unknowingly assembling were already rewriting the rules of engagement. Each soldered connection, each calibrated gear, each completed assembly was a step toward a force so precise, so silent, that it could strike with devastating effect and leave entire battalions bewildered. The sheer scale of coordination was astonishing. Raw materials had to arrive on schedule, precision tools had to function perfectly, and every worker had to perform flawlessly. The system was a marvel of engineering and logistics, a testament to the ingenuity of the designers, who balanced secrecy with efficiency. Even the tiniest oversight could compromise the entire operation. Yet the factories continued day and night, producing weapons that the world would not see for years. The impact of this workforce cannot be overstated. These women, unknowingly, were the architects of an invisible battlefield. Without their tireless labor, the secret weapon might never have reached the soldiers who needed it most. Their contribution was silent, yet it was as crucial as the scientists who designed the devices and the engineers who tested them. Every device that left the factory was a fusion of human skill, scientific brilliance, and wartime necessity, and it was about to be unleashed on an unsuspecting enemy. In the end, the story of these women is a story of paradox. They were ordinary in their daily lives, yet extraordinary in their impact. They soldered light bulbs, yet created the deadliest silent weapons of their time. They were invisible participants in a war of secrecy and innovation, and their work would forever alter the way battles were fought, proving that sometimes the most important contributors to history remain unseen, unknown, and uncelebrated. The weapon did not only change battles on land, it left an indelible mark at sea and in the air. Naval operations during Okinawa revealed its unparalleled effectiveness. Ships that had been considered untouchable were suddenly vulnerable to a force they could neither see nor hear. Every deployment demonstrated not just precision, but a level of reliability that defied conventional expectations. Commanders who witnessed its impact were astonished. Logs recorded ships being disabled or destroyed without warning, and sailors would later describe an eerie feeling of being hunted by an invisible adversary. The records set during these operations have yet to be broken, a testament to the weapon's sophistication and deadly efficiency. But the story was not just one of technological triumph, it was also a story of espionage and betrayal. In the shadows, a spy moved among allies, carefully passing critical secrets to Moscow in a lunchbox. The intelligence world recognized the importance of this weapon even before it became famous on the battlefield. Every unit captured or observed by enemy forces offered glimpses into a mechanism that seemed almost magical. Yet the full picture was always beyond their grasp. The secret was layered, compartmentalized, and shielded by genius-level engineering and strategic oversight. Every test at sea and in the air proved the weapon's versatility. It was designed to function in multiple theaters of war, against moving targets and under conditions where traditional artillery would fail. Its ability to adapt and strike without direct contact made it a force unlike any other in history. Ships, convoys, and even aircraft formations were disrupted with a precision that could only be described as surgical. While traditional tactics relied on brute force, this weapon relied on anticipation, intelligence, and the silent application of science. What made its deployment even more remarkable was the combination of human skill and technological brilliance. Operators and commanders in the field often had only minimal understanding of the device itself. They relied on its reliability, trusting that the unseen calculations and mechanisms within each unit would perform flawlessly. This level of confidence in a mechanical system was unprecedented, and it changed how military leaders approached strategy. The weapon did not just alter outcomes, it altered the mindset of those who relied on it. Reports of its impact began to filter back to the highest levels of military command. Admirals, generals, and intelligence officers marveled at the results, realizing that the weapon had introduced a new era of warfare, one in which knowledge, science, and stealth could achieve what brute force never could. Even as the world remained unaware, history was quietly being rewritten, one silent strike at a time. And yet, despite all its success, the weapon remained shrouded in mystery. Not a single photograph, not a single public report would reveal its inner workings. Only a handful of people truly understood its mechanisms, and they guarded the secret with the same intensity as they did the knowledge of the atomic bomb. In the cold quiet of the ocean and the vast expanse of the skies, the weapon continued to operate unseen, leaving a legacy of invisible power that would haunt military strategy for decades to come. The first blood drawn by this secret weapon marked a turning point not only in battles, but in the understanding of warfare itself. On the front lines, soldiers witnessed something they could neither see nor comprehend. Entire battalions were disrupted, entire formations wiped out, yet no conventional artillery had landed a single hit. The men who observed these events were astonished, some shaken to their core. Among them was one officer who would later play a role in one of the most consequential weapons in human history, the arming of Little Boy over Hiroshima. For him, the invisible weapon of the Ardennes was both a proof of concept and a chilling prelude to what was possible when science and secrecy combined. This was a weapon that forced armies to rethink strategy. Commanders could no longer rely solely on numbers, training, or experience. Anticipation, intelligence, and the unseen hand of technology had become as deadly as bullets or shells. The first deployments revealed that precision and psychological impact were as important as raw firepower. Entire campaigns were influenced not by the size of the army, but by the ability to harness innovation in secret, with timing and stealth as deadly allies. The journey of this weapon from laboratory to battlefield illustrates the extraordinary collaboration between scientists, engineers, and operators. Every detail had been meticulously tested, every failure analyzed, and every improvement implemented with painstaking care. What had once seemed impossible, the combination of mechanical timing with miniature radar systems, had become reality. And when it reached the battlefield, it performed flawlessly, demonstrating the terrifying potential of human ingenuity when applied in secret. But the weapon's story did not end with the Ardennes or Okinawa. Its legacy stretched far beyond conventional combat. Lessons learned from its design and deployment informed the most classified projects of the war, including the development of nuclear weapons. The men and women who had labored in secrecy, the engineers who had solved problems no one else could, and the operators who had seen the first devastating strikes all contributed, knowingly or unknowingly, to the shaping of history on a global scale. The connection to Little Boy is a stark reminder of the path from innovation to ultimate consequence. The same minds who had mastered timing, anticipation, and unseen power were now part of a program that would unleash destruction on an unprecedented scale. The lessons of stealth, precision, and secrecy that began in a converted garage and factories filled with unsuspecting hands culminated in a weapon whose impact would be felt around the world. History would remember the atomic bomb, but it began with experiments, tests, and small victories that no one outside a select circle could witness. In the end, this chapter is about the unseen forces that shape history. It is about technology, human ingenuity, and the moral complexity of invention. From first blood in the Ardennes to the deployment of the most destructive weapon ever created, this story illustrates that wars are not only fought with weapons of steel and fire, but with ideas, secrecy, and relentless innovation. The silent strikes, the invisible mechanisms, and the unseen hands that guided them all remind us that the most powerful forces are often the ones we never see coming, yet they leave an impact that echoes through time.